Welcome to A View to a Grill. I'm Johnny. Today we're going to be making some teriyaki sirloin shish kebabs on the Onlyfire shish kebab skewer set. Now let's go over all of the components of the Onlyfire shish kebab skewer set. In the box you'll find a rotisserie ring with room enough for 7 kebabs. You'll also find the battery operated motor and a bracket for that motor. Next you'll find the rotisserie gear assembly and a set of 7 skewers, 3 with handles and 4 with skewer loops. You'll also find some hardware for the skewers with the handles and the pin that rotates the gear assembly. To operate this skewer set, you're going to need 2 D-cell batteries. Now let's get this thing together. First, we're going to install the 2 D-cell batteries, and we'll give that a little test, and it seems to be working. And now here's the pin that's going to turn the gear assembly, and that goes in pointy side in. That pin is also going to hold up the bracket that gets installed on the rotisserie ring. Now we'll install the gear assembly, and that's going to be screwed on through these 2 holes on the rotisserie ring. You'll find the 2 screws that you need already screwed into the gear assembly, and then we'll use those 2 screws to screw on the gear assembly and then just tighten them firmly. Now we'll install the motor, and that is held on by a single wing nut. Next we'll screw on the skewer handles, and then we'll install the rollers. Now I'll just place the whole thing right on top of my Weber kettle. I'll give it a little test run just to make sure everything is turning, and it looks like everything's working. The only slightly confusing part with the instructions was that in the diagram it gives you, it does not show the little thumb screws on the outside of the ring, but you'll need to make sure you install those where the thumb screw is on the outside, because if you don't, you won't be able to remove the skewer. Now that we have the Onlyfire skewer set put together and installed on our Weber kettle, let's go ahead and make the teriyaki marinade for our sirloin teriyaki kebabs. Now you can easily just buy a store-bought teriyaki sauce, and there's nothing wrong with that. But maybe you want to go on the homemade route. It's a very simple sauce to make, and all you're going to need: a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup soy sauce, some honey, 1/4 cup of water, some fresh ginger, garlic, an ingredient that you won't find in most teriyaki recipes, some lemon juice. Love the flavor that it brings. The first thing you're going to want to do is rough chop your garlic. And we're also going to do the same thing to the ginger. Just give it a rough chop, don't even bother peeling it. Once you have that done, you're going to need a Ziploc baggie. And now, in no particular order, we're going to get all of those ingredients into our Ziploc baggie. Once you have everything in the baggie, you're going to want to leave a little air in the baggie, roll it up, shake it up until everything comes together. And when you're done, you're going to have some marinade that looks like this. Now that we have made our marinade, let's do our sirloin prep. I have a little bit over 2.5 pounds of sirloin. Now let's get that out of the package, and then we're just going to slice the sirloin into strips. We're going to cut these strips into about 1-inch pieces. And when I was done, I had a pile of sirloin that looked like this. Now some of these sirloins aren't perfect squares, and some of the sirloin pieces are maybe a little bit mangled, but they're all going to be just fine as long as we can get them on the skewers. Now we'll get all of that into our Ziploc baggie. Next, we're going to want to squeeze out as much air from the baggie as possible. And when I was done, my marinated sirloin in a bag looks like this. Now I'll put that bag in a bowl just in case of bag leakage, and I'm going to put that into the refrigerator where it's going to marinate for about 6 hours. Now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and start our vegetable prep and our dressing. First, let's prepare the vegetable dressing. I like to use squeezed ginger. We're also going to need about a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. I'll squeeze about a tablespoon of ginger right into the lemon juice. Next, I'll add 2 or 3 tablespoons of honey, or more if you like. Next, I'm going to use some squeezed garlic, just a tiny amount. And then finally, I'll use about a 1/4 cup of olive oil. I decided to put this mixture into a shaker bottle because it's easier to incorporate all the ingredients using this method. Now that our dressing is made, let's prepare the vegetables. Just going to be using some calabaza and yellow squash. I'll get my green squash cut into circles about an inch thick. And then I'll do the same with my yellow squash. I'll also be cutting up some colored bell pepper, and I'm going to get these as close to 1-inch squares as I possibly can. I'll just get those into the refrigerator until it's time to cook. Everything's been in the refrigerator for about 6 hours, and now it's time to get the fire started. I'm going to use my Weber kettle baskets, and I'm going to set them on each side of the Weber kettle. I'm doing this because I want all of my fire to be concentrated in the middle of the Weber. Also, you can see that I am reusing some charcoal from a previous cook that I've already knocked the loose ash off of. Now I'll get my fire cup started and set a full Weber chimney starter on top. While the fire is getting ready, it's time to get our skewers prepared. I'll be using some onions and red bell peppers for a couple of the meat skewers. And at this time, I'll also dress the vegetables. I'm going to put about half of that dressing into the bowl and then season our vegetables with Crave's Herb is the Word. Now, Crave's Herb is the Word has fastly become my go-to herb seasoning. Incredibly awesome, and it's low sodium, so you get the benefit of controlling the salt. When I was done, my seasoned vegetables look like this. Now I'll get all of the meat out of the bag, but don't throw away the marinade because we're still going to use that. So I'm going to get the marinade and pour that right into a small saucepan. Next, we're going to bring that saucepan up to a simmer for about 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, I'm going to strain that into a bowl, and we're going to use that to baste our teriyaki skewers. And now it's time to skewer our vegetables and meat. And here you can be as creative as you want. I'll have some plain meat skewers. I'm going to have some mixed meat, onion, and bell pepper skewers. I'll also do some vegetable only skewers. Now for the plain vegetable skewers, I'm going to hit them with another light coat of Crave's Herb is the Word. For the meat skewers, I'm going to use my own SPG mix, and I'm just going to hit these with a light coating over all sides of the meat skewers. And when I was done, my skewers looked like this. And now the fire is ready to go into the Weber kettle. For this fire, I waited until everything in the chimney starter was white hot. I then poured that directly over my used charcoal, and then I spread the fire around for even heat distribution. And then I put the Onlyfire ring right on to the Weber kettle. And now it's time to get the Kabobs on. Here I decided to put the meat only Kabobs in the center, and then I put the meat plus vegetable Kabobs on the outside of that, and then I put the only vegetable Kabobs completely on the outside. And I just thought I would get the meat only in the hottest part and the vegetable only in what I thought would be the coolest part. And now let's turn this thing on. You can see that these Kabobs are spinning pretty slowly, which is good. And here's what it looks like when I compress 3 minutes into 8 seconds. Now about 3 or 4 minutes in, I decided to baste the Kabobs. And you see I'm using that red brush. Well, that was a pretty short brush, and the heat coming off of this was so great that I had to go and get my longer baster. Now after about 5 or 6 minutes, the vegetable Kabobs got to a color that I liked, so I decided to remove those and let the meat Kabobs go for a little while longer. And I also continued to baste the meat periodically. Now I will admit I did overshoot the meat just a little bit. My plan was to get them off at 132, but they got up to 136, so now it's time to get these off of the fire. To make it easier for me to remove the Kabobs, I turned the motor off. Now I can easily remove them from the rotisserie ring. Everything's ready. Now let's check out the results. Now, first of all, take a look at this tray of Kabobs. I want to say I think the vegetables, they just look delicious. The meat, onion, and red bell pepper Kabobs, totally amazing. And the all meat Kabobs, if you're just a meat lover, you're going to love that meat on a stick. First, we'll try one of the vegetables. Now remember, I saved some of that dressing, and I'm just going to pour a little bit right on this squash. give that a try. And the vegetables are pretty delicious. They still have texture to them. The herb is the word seasoning is fantastic. And then just hitting them with a little light coated dressing just really makes all the flavors pop. Now let's try the star of the show and get some of that sirloin teriyaki. As you can see here, it's got great color. And now we'll just give that a try. I want to tell you that is pretty amazing stuff. So good that I just had to continue to eat a couple more of these. And I was so impressed with the way everything came out. This Onlyfire Kabob set, this thing is fun to cook with. I really loved it. If you want one for yourself, I'll have the link below in the description. Now it's time for dinner. So I had to grab these kebabs up, run them inside because people are waiting to eat. Now, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, go ahead, take a minute and do that now. Thank you for watching A View to a Grill. I'll see you guys next time. Take care, y'all.